AskReddit by one application 2371. What's an addiction that people often overlook? News addiction. People get addicted to the cortisol hit from getting outraged, so a lot of news outlets realize they just need to keep the cortisol flowing. Edit. For comments, change dopamine to cortisol. Outrage is an addiction. Some people seek it out, actively searching for a reason to hate their neighbors just so they can get their hit of dopamine. It feeds news addiction, tribalism, and eventually extremism. It's the source of so much violence, so many divided houses and ruined lives, but we do nothing to curb it. I remember my uncle, who had a history of domestic violence to my aunt before she passed of cancer, told the family he has an anger problem. My dad said, "But you're able to keep it together every time a cop is around." The look on his face and the dead silence. An anger issue is not an excuse. Shopping. I just got back this month after being in rehab for 2 months for weed, alcohol and cocaine, and at my therapy they asked me if I noticed any cross addictions. I told my therapist I think I have a shopping addiction, and she told me it's a common addiction that goes unnoticed way too much times. I always laughed at the idea of video game addiction. It sounded so overblown until I met a guy who honestly defined it for me. We used to chat and hang out weekly. He quit his job and now just lives at home with his mum, mooching off her to sit in his room and play games for close to 16 hours a day. After refusing to hang out for long enough, I just gave up on him. Finally, I found someone who mentioned video games. I grew up gaming. I absolutely loved playing them throughout my entire childhood and into adulthood, but I have seen addiction to video games absolutely destroy people. Part of me is glad that I simply don't have the time to be playing them much anymore. Maybe an hour or two a week. But I know adults in their 30s and 40s who are still obsessed, to the point of not wanting to do anything else. Phone addiction, no explanation needed. My stomach drops every time I see my daily average screen time. It's hard to realize how much time you spend scrolling until you actually see the numbers. When my depression is bad, I'd say sleep. It's a free, safe way to escape, but it ultimately feeds the depression, becoming a bad cycle. It doesn't sound that bad, but it's consuming. Edit. Some people are confused, so I'll clarify. It's not because of lack of rest. It's not the sleep itself, it's the dreaming, aka escape. A different reality that feels very real and isn't this one. Maybe I'm just not explaining it right, but yeah. Thank you for saying this. I was labeled as a typical lazy teenager, and it wasn't till I was in my final year of uni that a friend asked if I was okay, and explained oversleeping as a symptom of mental health issues. The truth was I was so miserable I just didn't want to be conscious and experience it. Better to be asleep, with a teeny tiny hope that I might feel a bit better when I woke up. I had virtually no awareness of mental health issues at the time, and therefore had no vocabulary to articulate how I felt. I feel sad for that lost time, but at least I can recognize it now for what it was. Edit to add, this has, unfortunately, resonated with a few people. Keep your chin up, it can and does get better eventually. Get help from your support network of friends and family, and professional help. I hope you feel better soon. Junk food. Sugar. Soda. I am addicted to these things and wish I can break that habit. I quit smoking quite easily, but I cannot for the life of me quit sugar. So much harder, no. Self-harm, I still get withdrawals, and if something scratches my arms in the right way I need to take a minute to gather myself. Was looking for this comment. PPL don't realize how genuinely addictive it is. Online shopping. Afterpay. I'm still confused how the pay later thing ever became popular. For me it would just increase my anxiety over buying stuff, like the transaction isn't really done yet. What are people getting out of it? Social media addiction. Including Reddit. Source: Reddit addict. Skin picking academatelomania. It's so overlooked that our society has glorified it. We have a show called Dr. Pimple Popper. WTF. I wish I could replace that shitty habit somehow. Staying up late for no reason and because you're afraid to miss out on anything. Or because you don't want the morning to arrive any sooner than it has to. Emotional abuse. Trauma bonds are fucking real. Run while you can. I met this guy who said we fit together like the tops of bell jars. It was so weird how much we related and connected, and he's a sleazy mess. Just because someone feels like home does not mean they are good for you. Thankfully I was older and wiser and gracefully walked away. Social affirmation. Lots of people spend all their weekends, free time and money on looking cool, successful and or popular to others. Maladaptive social conformity in general is destroying people's sense of true self as they purely assume personas and masks in the presence of other people. Addiction to work is not only overlooked but celebrated. You know who loves you working 80-90 hours weeks? Your bosses that rationalize withholding overtime pay. Nobody else thinks giving up your life to a factory or a semi-truck is a flex. Social media addiction. Way too many people want to be influencers and try to maintain a following to feel wanted and important. It's 10 times more cringe when those people pay companies for bot systems to like and follow them, or they try to leverage their following to avoid having to buy something. Food. Eating is one addicting activity you can't quit. What a nightmare. Caffeine. When I went to boot camp I was worried about not being able to smoke cigarettes. Was an avid smoker back then. Never even thought about caffeine. After the first day I suffered overwhelming headaches which turned out to be physical withdrawal from caffeine. Not smoking didn't even bother me. Weird. Self-isolating due to social anxiety. It's not an addiction I know, but it gets me high knowing how lonely I am and there is nothing I can do about it. I am not overweight or unattractive, but I love beating myself up about how socially inept I am. I am addicted to feeling sorry about myself, even though I am relatively good looking and in shape. Fuck. Happy to know I am not alone. Solitude is addictive to though. Feels good to have no pressure to perform or engage. You can just be. But it's usually not sustainable, like most addictions. Tribalism. People become indoctrinated and too engrossed to realize it. People become so addicted they choose to kill over sports, vehicle types, religion, politics, etc., and it's by design. People act less intelligent when they are a part of a group, mob mentality. Edited because syntax grammar police attack my autofill. Proofread everything kids. Outrage is the addiction. Tribalism is just one of the many crack pipes through which it is consumed. People are seeking outrage. Tribalism gives a sense of legitimacy to the outrage. Celebrities. You don't need to defend your favorite Kardashian or Jenner, because they don't know, nor they care for your existence. Porn addictions. Doesn't seem blatantly harmful, but over the long term it can really affect you negatively. Edit. I didn't think this would blow up like it did, but I'm glad that so many of you recognize the damage porn does, and I'm super happy to see so many people conquer their addiction. I had a coworker that was fired because he used to spend 7 hours a day watching porn from the work computer. It can be harmful the short term too. Anything legal but bad for your longevity. Alcohol, sugar, and sugar derivatives. People really overlook the detrimental effects of sugar. It's the root of incredible varieties of medical conditions. Yeah, it's crazy how overlooked alcohol is in terms of addiction. Personal experience has taught me you can easily get away with killing yourself slowly with booze as long as you are friendly, do your job and aren't spiraling out of control in the eyes of others. Extraordinarily accepted and actually encouraged despite its potential lethality. The wine mob personality. Drinking that much wine. Only able to attend your kids' sporting events with a water bottle full of alcohol. Drinking every time there's a social event, even if you don't feel the need to. Drinking because your kid is crying. Drinking because you don't like your husband. Like honey, you're addicted. This is why I gave up booze. It's such a toxic part of mothering these days. Nasal spray. There are plenty of other much worse things I could shove up my nose, but still. I can't breathe through my nose without it, and I can't stand that it's like this. I've been there. It's pretty fast to reverse the dependency, though you can switch to saline or neti pot for a couple of days to get you over the hump, but I found my nose clears up after 2-3 days without it. 2-3 very uncomfortable sleepless days, mind you. Isolation. Being alone can be really addicting and make you lose a lot of friends and such. Looks or being ideal in general. Thanks to social media killing people's self-esteem and forcing them to chase in most cases unreachable goal of being picture perfect. I read something about the most revolutionary thing one can do is not fall for the idea that there's something wrong with you just so they can sell you a solution to a made-up problem. Shopping, or unhealthy accumulation of material goods. Being constantly outraged about news, other people's opinions, beliefs etc., then trying to stir up arguments with others. Control. Good game. Can't say it was addictive though. Gym addiction. It's the only thing keeping me sane these days. Started cause I wanted to gain muscles. Now the thought of taking a prolonged rest is quite dreadful. The rest part is so true. It's so difficult to let yourself rest, even if it's just for a week. Interestingly, sometimes you end up coming out of the rest week stronger than if you'd kept lifting through it, too.